You're sitting in a circle at dusk, coals popping in the sand. A man across the fire keeps talking. Too long, too loud. About the antelope he tracked alone for 6 hours. Nobody claps. Someone laughs. Sharp, not kind. By sunrise, the story is a joke told behind his back. He doesn't talk that way again. Right now, in your own life, there's a version of this. The coworker who name-drops their own success in every meeting. The friend who always centers themselves. You've watched a group quietly, collectively, take someone down a peg. No vote, no meeting, no rule written anywhere. For almost all of human history, that quiet correction wasn't a personality quirk. It was the entire political system. So how did people, for 95% of the time our species has existed, with no elections, no crowns, no constitutions, decide who got to lead? In 1999, anthropologist Christopher Boehm published a survey of forager societies across 5 continents. Work later expanded in a 2012 paper in the journal. His finding, bands of 20 to 50 people actively organized to prevent any one person from gaining permanent power. Ridicule, gossip, group shunning. In the rare extreme case, expulsion, or worse, Boehm called it a reverse dominance hierarchy, the weak banding together to dominate anyone who tried to dominate them. This wasn't chaos, this was engineering. So what does that actually look like on the ground? In 1969, anthropologist Richard Lee published an account of the Ju-Ho-Hansi-San people of the Kalahari, in what's now Namibia and Botswana. Lee had bought an ox for a Christmas feast, a huge one, easily 600 pounds of meat, enough to feed the whole camp for days. He expected gratitude. Instead, camp members openly mocked the animal as scrawny and worthless. One elder later explained it to him directly. When a young man kills meat, he comes to think of himself as a chief. So the group insults the meat, every time, on purpose, to cut him back down before the habit forms. Here's where it gets strange, though. It's tempting to hear all this and assume ancient humans had no leaders at all, just permanent enforced sameness. That's wrong. They had leaders constantly, just not the kind that stuck around. Leadership in most forager bands was task-specific and temporary. The best tracker leads the hunt, the best mediator settles the dispute, and then, the moment the job ends, so does the authority. Nobody carried the title home, so what changed? At some point, temporary leadership stopped resetting. In 1963, anthropologist Marshall Salins published a comparison of political systems across Melanesia and Polynesia in the journal Comparative Studies in Society and History. In parts of Melanesia, he described a role anthropologists now call the big man, a leader who earned status not through birth, not through violence, but through sustained, strategic generosity. Feasts thrown, debts created, loyalty built one pig at a time, and critically, the position wasn't inherited. Die, and the influence usually died with you. Every generation, the position was won again from scratch. Everyone assumes real power always meant permanent power, passed down, locked in. For most of human history, the opposite was closer to true. Leadership was borrowed, not owned, and had to be re-earned constantly, sometimes weekly. So what finally broke the reset button? In their 2012 book, The Creation of Inequality, archaeologists Kent Flannery and Joyce Marcus at the University of Michigan traced the shift from these fluid, earned positions into fixed, hereditary chiefdoms, a switch documented across dozens of independent societies worldwide, from the Pacific Northwest to the Andes. Their argument centers on one hard mechanical fact: agriculture. Farming produces storable surplus. Storable surplus can be controlled by one household instead of shared instantly. And control of surplus, generation after generation, is what finally let a title outlive the person holding it. The leveling mechanisms that had worked for tens of thousands of years, the mockery, the gossip, the shrinking of oversized egos, simply couldn't outcompete a grain store with a lock on it. That's the turn. The real answer to how ancient leaders were chosen isn't really about the leaders at all. It's about the group's power to unchoose them, a power so effective it took agriculture and stored grain to finally break it. For most of the human story, authority wasn't handed to the loudest voice in the circle. It was handed to whoever the circle allowed to keep it, one earned day at a time, and taken back the moment that person forgot the difference between leading and owning. You're sitting in that same circle, tonight, in a different shape, a boss instead of a chief, a group chat instead of a fire, an algorithm instead of a gossiping elder, quietly deciding who gets amplified and who gets ignored. The tools changed. The instinct didn't. You still know, in your body, exactly how it feels when someone at the table starts believing their own hype, and exactly how good it feels, in a small, mean way, to watch the group cut them back down to size. Ancient humans didn't fear having no leader. They feared having one who forgot he was borrowed. So what does that actually look like on the ground? In 1969, anthropologist Richard Lee published an account of the Juhoansi San people of the Kalahari, in what's now Namibia and Botswana. Lee had bought the biggest ox he could find for a Christmas feast big enough, he thought, to feed the whole camp for days. Camp members openly mocked the animal as nothing but a bag of bones. One elder later explained it to him directly. When a young man kills meat, he starts thinking of himself as a chief. So the group insults the meat, every time, on purpose, to cut him back down before the habit forms. You're at the fire. Someone talks too long about their own success. And by morning, the group has quietly taken them down a peg. No vote, no rule, just instinct. For 95% of human history, that instinct was the political system.